What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we're taking a look at Sleeper ADPs, determining who the 10 best picks are over there on Sleeper. Sleeper has by far the most competitive ADPs among the redraft sites. It still lags a little bit behind Underdog. Underdog's the most competitive platform, but that's best ball. So if you are looking at the most accurate ADPs for redraft leagues, you're looking at Sleeper. However, because ADPs are so strong, there's only actually 3 players where they are the #1 value on Sleeper. So we're going to obviously start with those 3. Then we're going to look at 7 more who aren't necessarily the #1 value, but if you were drafting on Sleeper, you should be heavily paying attention to these players because they are significant values. Also, this is as of August 12th, Monday, August 12th. If you want to see how these ADPs change, it's completely free. All of this data on my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. You can follow along, and if something slightly changes, you can see that in real time. So, first player we're going to talk about, again, best value, one of the 3 best values on Sleeper is Breece Hall. In my half PPR rankings, I have him 5th, but I've said many times, I'm okay if you want to start off a draft, McCaffrey, then your favorite between Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson, and then the other one. If you wanted to take those guys top 3, totally fine doing that in half PPR scoring, on realistically even in PPR scoring. This is all going to be half PPR for this video. Again, 5th overall in the rankings though. Average in the industry, 6th overall. He's going right in the mid of the first round in a 12-team league. On Sleeper, 9th. 9th overall half PPR scoring on Sleeper. That's a huge value. It's also massive because, I mean, we've talked plenty about how there's a top 8 players in all non-Superflex formats. There are a top 8 players, basically ends with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and usually going to have Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson kind of in the middle of those 8. If you're actually going to be able to possibly get him at the end of that 8 into like the 9th pick, if he falls, the 10th pick, that is significant value that you absolutely need to be slamming on Sleeper. I did the mock draft on Sleeper on Monday where we did talk about how difficult a late first round pick is and how you basically just want to lean running back and not take the wide receiver value if it's there, just because of how things kind of set up this season. But again, if Breece Hall is there, slam dunk pick. I think I also just want to mention that, like, even if the platform you're drafting on, which many of them do, have him at 5, 6, 7, understand he's a rock solid pick. Again, I think it's more personal take whether you want to go him or Bijan Robinson. I think that decision a lot comes down to how you feel about the Falcons offense, right? Do you believe they're going to have an amazing season? Probably want to lean Bijan. If you're like, Falcons kind of seem maybe a little bit overhyped, I don't think it's going to be that much of an increase, go with Breece Hall. All are stuff amazing. He's an awesome pick mid. And then again, if you can get him 9th, great value on Sleeper. Another player, best ADP value on Sleeper, is Mike Evans. Now, Evans is actually the only player on this list where I'm actually behind ADP, behind the value on Sleeper. So again, if someone's a really good value on Sleeper compared to ADP, most of the time they're going to be a good pick. They're going to be, ranked on Sleeper behind my rankings. But I have him 34th overall in half PPR scoring. Average in the industry is 26th overall. On Sleeper, he goes 28th overall. So I wanted to bring him up because he's obviously a player that has consistently done this for years, 1,000 yards in every single season of his career. Just an unbelievable feat. We did not see a drop-off last season. If anything, it was one of the best seasons he's ever had from an underlying metric standpoint. So we shouldn't expect a drop-off for Mike Evans this season. My only concern, and again, it's a concern for the 34th overall player, so I still love him as a player, and that whole range of like pick, honestly, 18 through like 38, like that, like huge range there, very, very similar in the projection. So like 1 point could really make a huge difference between some players there. My only concern is them losing Dave Canales. Like, I truly believe Dave Canales is a really, really good coach. Could we see some level of drop off there for Mike Evans? Maybe. Also, Jalen McMillan, they didn't have a #3 wide receiver last season. I mean, they did, but they trotted on like just garbage players. And so could having that, could also having a second running back option that can excel in the receiving game, like could just having those players, moving Chris Godwin into the slot where he's more effective, more efficient throughout his career there, could the development of Cade Otton command more targets? Like, there's a lot of different factors towards like maybe we see a step back in the overall production for Mike Evans, even if you don't think that him as a player gets any worse. So again, Evans is a great value. I'm not saying do not draft Mike Evans. I just have some level of concern. So even though he's the best value on Sleeper, I still probably wouldn't end up with him a ton. I'd probably be underweight the field if I had multiple drafts. Third and final player that is the number one value on Sleeper is Jake Ferguson. I have him 87th overall. Average in the industry is 83rd. On Sleeper, he goes 90th. Good pick. I still have the take where I would prefer a top 7 tight end. I know that is not always possible, and I still don't want to reach on anyone. I would just want to continually go through the top 7 and be okay, you're off the board. Who's next? Do they become a value? No. Okay, who's next? And just try and get there. Try and get one of them in the top 7. If you don't do that, I think Ferguson's awesome. He has the baked in upside of this unknown with CeeDee Lamb of when's it going to happen, right? I would still be shocked. I'd be unbelievably shocked if they do not get a deal done before the start of the season. So I don't actually think Lamb is going to miss games. And I mean, because again, I was alluding to if Lamb missed any games, obviously Jake Ferguson would gain a ton of value, even if it's only early in the season. He'd project as probably a top 4, easily a top 4. I don't even care what the matchup is. Maybe a top 3 tight end for any week Lamb were to miss. So there's a little bit of baked in upside there. But I think the overall point is it's going to be a very good offense. This season, I mean, who are the running backs, right? We're thinking Rico Dowdle is going to be the one. They like Royce Freeman. They want to give Zeke an opportunity. They got nothing, right? Their run game is not going to be good. They're going to continue throwing the ball at the highest rate in the league. They're going to run a ton of plays. It's going to be explosive offense, so touchdowns are there. He's clearly the number 1 option for tight ends, but realistically, he's probably going to end up being the 3rd most targeted player on this team. Very locked in role. So again, if you miss out on the top 7 who I still want, Jake Ferguson is the best option, and he's a great value on Sleeper. He'd be someone I definitely keep in mind over there. Again, surprisingly, those are the only 3. Until you get into the 190s, but we don't really need to talk about those players. So those are the only 3 that are fantastic values on Sleeper compared to everywhere else. But you don't have to be the number 1 value on all of the platforms to still be a really good pick. So the 7 remaining players, Sleeper is the 2nd best place to draft them, but they're still great values, both compared to average ADP and my ranking. So we'll start off with wide receiver. We have 2. First one up is Cooper Kupp. I have him 21st overall. Average in the industry is 35th overall. Sleeper 42nd overall. That is a phenomenal value for Cooper Kupp there. That is literally twice. I have him 21st. He's 42nd. That's just absolutely crazy. I still don't know how exactly the target share is going to unfold. And I do think they're going to get more production from their 3rd wide receiver this season, potentially rotating between their 3 and their 4. But main point is, in me not knowing who's going to be the most valuable, it is me saying we were too extreme to start the season having Puka Nacua as, I think I had him 11th overall, 11, 12, going in that general 1-2 turn. Still have Garrett Wilson all season and now AJ Brown ahead of him. But we've kind of had him locked into that range. And also, I just want to point out, this is not injury-related take here. Do not worry about the injury to Puka Nacua right now. He's going to be fully good to go for prep for week 1. No danger of missing week 1. He's not going to miss any time because of this injury. Could miss it for a different one, but not this injury. It's just there's plenty of reports that have been Cooper Kupp has not been even remotely healthy at any point in the last 2 years. And he was banged up all last season. That was a large reason why, they did have to go to Puka. Now, Puka was awesome. Puka had the best rookie season we've ever seen. You have to be good to still command that level of workload, to be that productive on those targets. He's still a great wide receiver. But if Cooper Kupp is now healthy, which all reports indicate, you got to think he's going to have a pretty significant role on the offense this season. And maybe he does become the most valuable wide receiver in the team. And it's Cooper Kupp. He's someone that literally has 2,000 receiving yards in his range of outcomes. Would I predict it to happen? Probably not. We'll wait for the hot takes video at the end of August, and we'll see what my take is on Cooper Kupp if he's in that one. But I think the larger point is he's going to be good. He's going to have a very large role on this team, and he has the upside to be that top target. And if he's that top target, he'll be worth a 1st-round pick. So you can get it 42nd overall in Sleeper. That's incredible. DeVonta Smith, other wide receiver. I have him 32nd overall. Average in the industry is 41st. On Sleeper, he goes 45th. Another great value. This is basically something where it's if you have a general pick around pick 40 to 45, you should be just like scribbling that in for Cooper Kupp or DeVonta Smith on Sleeper. And it's another reason why we say lean running back early, because I cut it off at Cooper Kupp and DeVonta Smith, but there are plenty of values on all platforms in the middle rounds for wide receiver. These two specifically, if you have a general pick in that range, even if you're picking in like the late 30s, if you're late 30s to early to mid 40s on Sleeper, you should be getting one of these two players. A few people have talked about, potentially that like CeeDee Lamb role for AJ Brown. I think it's DeVonta Smith. I think DeVonta Smith is going to move into the slot more this season. He's going to get those layup targets that we saw Kellen Moore give to CeeDee Lamb when he was coaching, not head coach, the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, of course, coaching the Eagles, right? So we're going to see the Eagles run more plays. We're going to see them be much more pass heavy. They're going to just play faster on offense. They're going to lean like very pass heavy, even in like neutral game scripts, even when they are winning games. Yes, they're going to win a lot, so they'll lean on Saquon Barkley when it happens. But look back at what Kellen Moore has done in his career as an offensive coordinator. He throws the ball, right? He's very, very aggressive. They're going to do that a lot, even with the ascending of that third wide receiver right now. Johnny Wilson is not going to command any sort of like real target share. We know where the targets are going. We know that DeVonta Smith is one of the better prospects we've seen in a very long time. He's a phenomenal wide receiver. He was a great prospect coming in. Then he produced really well at a very young age. He is a great wide receiver. This is a phenomenal value to get a locked-in player with a significant ceiling this season. Next up, got some running backs. 4 running backs that are great values on Sleeper. First one, awesome value. Derrick Henry. You guys know I love Derrick Henry, but like, on Sleeper, you got to be smashing Derrick Henry, right? I have him 16th overall. Average in the industry is 20th overall. Sleeper, 25th overall. You can get him at the 2-3 turn, and maybe even if you have like a 2 or 3 pick there, getting him in round 3. That's unreal value. I've been over plenty of times why I like him, but even from a strategy standpoint, just understanding that like he's a great pick in general. But imagine pairing him with Christian McCaffrey and being like, okay, I'm going to start off Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry. I'm not going to touch the running back position for like 8 rounds because I have 2 players who could both score 17 plus touchdowns. Both are, I think, 1 and 2 in rushing yards for like, if you look at props for like who's projected to lead the NFL in rushing yards, they're 1 and 2. Like locked in production, locked in touchdowns. That would be an unreal starter draft. And you'd also be adding on like a late second round wide receiver, which feels unfair. Or you could double dip a wide receiver, right? You could do hero with Derrick Henry. And you can say, okay, I'm going to take like CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill. I'm also going to take like Nico Collins or like Chris Olave, someone like that in round 2. And then get Derrick Henry in round 3, someone who is capable of over, 1,700 yards this season, of scoring 20 touchdowns. I love it. 25th overall. It just opens up like an unfair ceiling. Again, most game script dependent running back in NFL history. That doesn't mean he's not good in losses. It just means that in wins, he's the best running back of all time. Like when he wins, he averages like 23 points per game. They're going to win a lot of games in Baltimore. Clear goal line back, have absolutely no running backs behind him stealing workload. He's a monster this season. Pacheco, also really like. I have Pacheco 23rd overall, so at that 2-3 turn, that's where he's going on average in the industry. But on Sleeper, he was 31st overall. That's a great value as well. We're getting more towards like the mid to late 3rd round. That is a general range where you might have taken, 2 wide receivers to start off with, because you probably had, like a 6, 7, 8 pick. That's a range where, if Breece is gone, if Bijan is gone, obviously McCaffrey's gone, and you don't want to reach for Gibbs, right? You don't want to reach for Zamir Gibbs, and you take that wide receiver, maybe you started off with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Then you got to the 2nd round, and everyone took the running backs, and you're like, I kind of have to take wide receiver here. Being able to land Pacheco in like the middle of the 3rd round is really, really strong. Could be the best offense in football. It's going to be a top 5 offensive line. They were 14th in points per game last season, but that is not something that's like historically happened under Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes-led offenses are top 5 offenses. They're going to return to being that this season. They can get the explosiveness back. I know the Hollywood Browns are a little banged up right now, but they brought in enough players to where he misses time. If Worthy ever missed time, now they at least have both of them that can be each one of them is way better than what they had as deep threats. before. You've got Rashee Rice ascending and probably not getting suspended. Like, this offense is going to be better. And when you think about the touchdown upside, when you think about the extra reception upside with no more McKinnon, at least as of right now, seeming like they're going to kind of give him not a featured role, because basically no one is featured besides potentially McCaffrey, and even then he might not be truly featured. But if he's going to be out there, over 70% of the snaps, getting red zone snaps, getting goal line snaps, getting third down snaps, the opportunity is immense, and he's proven that he's a very, very good player. Phenomenal pick if you can get him at that spot, and I'd even take him again. I have him 23rd overall. I'd easily take him at 2-3 turn as well in redraft. Zamir White, great value as well. Zamir White, I have him 68th overall, 73rd on average in the industry, 78th overall over there on Sleeper. Not someone you want to really heavily target in a full PPR league. Again, this is a half PPR video. The receptions are not going to be there. They're going to use Dylan Lobb. I think that's how you pronounce his last name, from New Hampshire. Likely, he's going to be that third down back. He'll have some, right? Like, if he's kind of, that early down grinder, there'll still be plays where they use play action. He ends up getting a dump off, where they, go into a script where it's like, we could run it, we could pass it, but like maybe we're leaning a little bit pass heavy right now. He's not going to always come off the field when they're passing the ball. So if he can rack up 15 receptions on the season, you'd be happy with that, because he's literally, like, in their wins, he's going to have over 20 carries. Not going to win that many games, but if they just keep it close, he could literally average like 18 to 20 carries per game this season. All of the goal line work, like, the touch volume is there. And for someone to get you like 78th overall, to have a locked-in workload, typically when you're drafting this range, this is like, I would say kind of the end of the dead zone, but that, like, quote-unquote dead zone for running backs, where it's like, we're kind of like over-projecting volume because we don't know what to do. We're like, well, we have to project carries on this team. We don't necessarily know where to put it. And so we kind of just give it to one player. They end up getting really high, and then ends up being a committee. And we're like, oh yeah, I kind of messed that up. Should have taken them that early. That's the general take on the dead zone historically. That's not Zamir. I mean, they love Zamir White. The fan base loves Zamir White, so it'd be very weird for them to move someone else. He is just locked in. We know with like 100% certainty, if he stays healthy, he's going to get a billion carries. The question will be the receptions, but at 78th overall, if you get a ton of carries, you get the goal line work, and you just sprinkle in a few receptions here and there, that is plenty to pay off that ADP. Great pick on Sleeper, 78th overall. Final running back that's a great value on Sleeper is Jaylen Warren. I have him 81st overall. Average in the industry is 90th overall. On Sleeper, he goes 95th, so very strong value there. I haven't drafted a ton of him, but that's over on Underdog. Underdog, he's going pretty early among running backs. People are really in love with him. On Sleeper, though, that's a really strong value. Another player that, like, we know that the production is going to be there. We know the touches are going to be there. We know that it is Najee Harris. It is Jaylen Warren. Probably not in a 50-50 split. They are probably still going to lean on Najee Harris in maybe like 60-40, maybe 55%, 45%. But we know that Warren is going to be efficient. We know that Arthur Smith loves to run the ball, so it's going to be a run-first offense. Mean plenty of touches for him. And we know he has that baked-in upside. I remember I've talked like probably a month ago about how Najee's kind of sustained this value over Warren because he gets the goal line work, right? When they get into the goal line, they switch on over to Najee a lot, not all the time, but a lot of the time. And so even if, touches are a little bit in favor of Najee Harris, but then receptions are in favor of Warren, it's like that differentiator between the two of them has always been the touchdowns, because if Warren is a lot of the time going to come off the field in the red zone, touchdowns are obviously super valuable. And so even if he's efficient, even if he's getting those touches, it's like if he's not getting touchdowns, that hurts. We have some upside here that, like, historically we have seen with Arthur Smith when he was on coaching the Falcons. He hasn't necessarily just locked into one running back and said, you're going to be the goal line back, when they had another option, right? They would bring Tyler Algier onto the field last season instead of Bijan Robinson, even though I think everyone knows Bijan Robinson is a better running back. Could it happen to where it's closer to 50-50? Could it happen to where, like, if Warren is on the field for that drive, he just stays on the field like they would do with Algier, and maybe he just gets more red zone work? So that's like the kind of biggest out for Warren this season. Of course, also just being like, he's a very good player. Najee stay healthy, but Najee could easily get injured. But then just the offense, being that like kind of run-centric offense, these two being such a focal point, I think it just makes him a very strong pick. Again, the touches will be there, and he has that baked-in upside. Plus, it's like the downside is that he's used like he was in the past, and he basically pays off this ADP. So a great pick in terms of like the floor is pretty close to where you're drafting him, but he does have a significant ceiling if things go his way this season. Final player we'll go over today, quarterback, only quarterback on the list. Not many quarterbacks are amazing values on Sleeper. Jordan Love. I have him 73rd overall. Average in the industry is 79th overall. On Sleeper, he goes 85th overall. So a very, very good value. Again, I think Jordan Love is an amazing pick. He went into last season with like barely any pass attempts, and he crushed it, and he got so good towards the end of the season. He deserved that monster contract they gave him very recently. Like, he's clearly going to be a very, very good quarterback for years. And it's not super risky in the sense that like he's not hypermobile. He will run it. He will take off, especially in the red zone, take the touchdowns if they're there, and he will get you some yards with his legs. So he's not a complete zero. But in terms of like, there's some quarterbacks where it's like, they're heavily dependent on one player. If that one player gets injured, they're like, they lose a lot of their value, especially if they're not hypermobile. Someone like Lamar Jackson can make up for it just running it. With Love, they have so many playmakers that like, what if Christian Watson got hurt? Okay, you throw Wicks in there. And now you have a 4-person rotation because you still have Bo Melton as well. They just have so many young, athletic wide receivers that are all ascending that even if they suffer multiple injuries, they're still good. They have pass-catching running backs. They have pass-catching tight ends. Like, it's a great offense that can withstand a ton of injuries. You add in a decent offensive line. You add in an amazing head coach. Like, this offense is going to take off this season. I think people will finally just like think, oh yeah, Jordan Love is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. And when you combine great quarterback talent, great skill player talent with explosiveness as well, that's very important. They have very explosive players on offense. Big plays lead to big games for quarterbacks, but then also the great coaching aspect. Everything is working out. And I think people, again, don't view him as mobile. He's not hyper mobile. He can still take off. He can still run it. He can be effective with his legs enough to make him a non-zero and to get him out of that tier of like Matthew Stafford, of Jared Goff, players who are also good, also have great coaching, also have explosive players. But when you're a complete zero on the ground, that hurts. Jordan Love is not a complete zero. I think he's going to ascend into the elite tier this season. Great, great, great value. 85th overall on Sleeper. So those are 10 players that are great values on Sleeper. I believe in 2 days, we're going to do the best values on ESPN. So if you want to see that video, subscribe. All these videos are free. And if you watch this far, hit the like button. Really helps me out. Also, if you want to see my exact rankings for every player in every scoring format as well, this one was geared more towards half PPR. But if you want all scoring formats, if you have a weird scoring format, if you want my custom rankings, we can input that. See all that on my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com, where you can also see a must-draft players. Must-draft players list has dropped for this season. So that'll do it for this one. Thank you all for watching, but I'll catch you guys on the next one.